It always comes to this. More nice shit. Morning guys, back into another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I'd talked about, didn't quite show off, but talked about the upper arm bright red and black session that I had here, and it's all for the most part healed up, but quite dry at the end of a day here. I haven't lotioned it here since the morning, so the first like week or so, whenever you're doing kind of heavy color saturation, it's normal to be fairly dry for a while, and in some cases that's actually for the best. If you have any weeping plasma or pooling or anything like, you know, gooey looking, it's better to dry things out. I didn't have any of that this time, but I did last time around my wrist, so you can see it's still healing there. That all of that shiny white look there and some of the scabbing, when that goes away, it will reveal a red, like a brighter red again. But while that's healing, the top layer appears kind of whitish, and that's completely normal. You see some of that in and around here too, and that won't stay that way for very long. It's very normal for that to be the case, especially if you're doing a lot all at once. But the bright red did really good. It did maybe even better up top, but again, there was less trouble there. So I most likely will, knowing me, do a second pass of the bright red at some point. Before that, I'll be doing another pass on at least the bicep rose, but most likely all the roses. With the addition of detail in the red, I think that we can probably do some more detail in the roses. And I probably will do a second or another pass on the thorns as well, because I believe they can be quite a bit brighter now too, and they may as well be. It's not like I mind being tattooed, obviously, and as long as there's room to advance, then there's more gas in the tank, very clearly. Yeah, so that'll probably be within the next few weeks that'll tackle all of that. Not exactly sure the turn order of what goes when, but I could see that all being done within the next month. Before I get into what I'm doing with Terry this week, because that will be a bit of a long section of this vlog, I will quickly show off what Rick and I did here today. And we did this section in here. I think Rick wanted to go down here, but the skin was tightening up, and we did maybe 2 hours in here, so not a super long session, but I was here most of the day. It was a heavy fuck around day at the shop. Some people who've been tattooed a lot will understand this, but the more impressive amount of time spent is not how long I've been tattooed, but more impressive than that is how long I've spent in and around the tattoo session. So for example, today I got here around 11:30. It's a day off at the shop here. Rick and I work together on a day we're closed, and I've tried moving our appointment through the week. Rick likes to work on this, just the two of us, have the podcast on, and you know, just kind of shoot the shit and do our thing. But today was a heavy fuck around day. There was a lot of nonsense involved in it, and here we are. It's 4:30, and we did, I would say, a dedicated 2 hours of tattoos, and a lot of just kind of hanging out and smoke breaks and pissing around and stuff that really drains the life out of you sometimes. But you know, I do enjoy his company, and we have a good time either way. But it would have been nicer if we could have done a little bit more, but it is what it is. It's not like I'm surprised at this point. And you know, back in the day, Rick was one to no-show you or be late for appointments and stuff, and he really isn't that way anymore. So in some sense, this is the best he's ever been, and I do value that. We're also on the track. As long as we're on the track and we're making progress, I don't really care about those things that much. I don't plan to have much to do after a session with Rick anyway. It's typically a day off, like I said, and we don't really, my wife and I, other than walking our one dog, we don't really have a whole lot of plans for the evening other than supper. So it is what it is. It's just you get less of your evening on days like this. But there will always be days like this when you're dealing with Rick. So that's part and parcel of being tattooed by an old school tattooer, I think. And it used to be like you would get fed up with one guy that did that to you, and then you would go to see another one, and it was even worse. That was very, very usual for the tattoo industry at one point, I assure you. And these days, you have a lot more options than you used to. So it is what it is. It's all part of working with Rick, and you do get a cool product, a really custom piece, but you get a lot of fuck around, and you get 91 sessions on a tattoo. Now, that's not typical, obviously. He's usually a lot, like, we're in the extremes, obviously, trying to do incredibly detailed work over black, and now me pushing where we basically were done with the darker version of this sleeve. I'm wanting it to be much brighter, and we are getting things quite a bit brighter. Some colors are doing better than others, but overall, I'm liking the overall progression that we're getting, so we'll keep her going a while longer. I could be done now other than the hand. Realistically, the hand is the only part of this that really desperately needs a lot of love for what it was, but it's not as colorful as I want it to be. And obviously, I'm in general becoming much more colorful, brighter colors. And originally, you could say I've been colorful for a while, but now the colors are all going brighter. So naturally, the whole thing has to be redone to fit that model. So, or I'm just making excuses to prolong my tattoo journey, whatever you want to say. With that said, my next session is back to my legs. I have been talking about this for people who have been watching the vlogs all along. I first mentioned this quite a while back, and in fact, I first mentioned it to Terry close to a year ago. I believe Terry had to put his family dog down. Terry's quite a bit younger than me, and but he had a family dog that he grew up with, kind of, and it got put down about a year ago now. And you know, at that time, my dog Mozart has been old forever. You know, when we got our other dog Salem, my wife's dog, Mozart was already old. When she met me, he was already fairly old. That dog is like he was like an elder dog for all his entire life. So almost his entire life. I believe he was between 16 and a half and 18. I got that dog in August of 2016, and he was full grown at that point. He had been living at a rescue for at least 3 months, and prior to that, he had another family that abused him. So when I got him, he was afraid of feet, because what I can figure is because he's a yappy breed, but he never barks and he never yaps at all. He's very, very quiet. What I can put together is because he's afraid of feet and he never yaps, and whenever he does yap, he looks scared to this day, or, well, not to this day, but I'll get into that. My assumption is that whenever he barked or yapped of any kind, he was kicked for it, and so he had trauma from that. But with that said, he must have lived with that family for at least a little while, and then usually you don't have a dog leave the litter for around 3 weeks to a month or so. So putting all of this together, there's no possible way that he was any younger than 16 and a half, and he could have been even older than that, because as I said, when I got him, he was full grown. And then I had that dog from 2009 to nearly the middle of 2025 here. So it's going. This will be going up probably in June sometime, but we put him down April 6th. So yeah, April 5th or 6th, Friday. So a couple days ago. Anyway, you know, it was always a case that I knew he was going to have to take a turn quick. Like, there was no way he was going to live forever. And right up until early this year, he was basically unchanged, right? Like, he had his same personality basically his entire life. And he had no real negative health episodes. He didn't have any signs that he was getting older. But This last couple weeks, he radically changed out of nowhere, and he stopped eating his kibble. And for a while, it was enough to give him kind of special, like I guess, treat wet food meals. And he was on a fairly expensive diet. We treat the dogs really well. Both of our dogs eat very well, but we switched him to wet food altogether. For a little while there, we were having to wet his food because his teeth were getting, we'll say, less sturdy, right? An older dog is going to have bad teeth to some degree, right? Even if you take care of them reasonably well, they're going to start kind of dying off on. And so we had been wetting his food for some time. And at the end of it, he got to eat like a king because it only lasted for so long that he was eating the wet dog food before we were giving him mashed potatoes and rice and oatmeal and cheese and just kind of whatever he would eat. And it was at that point, like, I think Sarah, my wife, was she was holding out hope that maybe he'd just eat like that for a while and maybe he would make a recovery and maybe he'd be fine for a while. But I knew that once that started, it was only a matter of time that we were going to have to take him in. And this past Friday, I couldn't get him to eat anything. When I went home from work, I took a break. I've been going home from work to kind of check on him and try and get him to eat and go out and stuff. And he refused to eat anything that morning or that afternoon. So I decided it was going to have to be time to make the call and kind of see what the vet thought. And we took him in, and it turned out that he was in quite a bit more pain than he was even showing. And even when the vet was giving him an examination, she said dogs are very stoic. They never let you know they're in pain. And he's had a lot of pain in his hips for a while, who knows how long. And his teeth they're pretty much all in pain, and that's why he's not eating. And there's just about no hope of saving him this far into his life. The earliest he could be is 16 and a half, or the youngest he could be is 16 and a half. Any kind of major surgeries he has at this point to take out the teeth and try and get him on medicine or whatever, like, it's just going to be more stress than it's worth. And so when we took him in, prior to that, we sat with him, and I made sure my son knew that this was going to be probably the last time he's seen him. And we did everything we could to kind of say goodbye to him. And we both knew. I think Sarah was in some form of denial over it, but taking him to the vet that evening was going to be the last. And I sat with him when they put him down, and I always think it's important to be there at the end of any loved one's life. And I take a pet's life more seriously than most people I know. I care more about that dog than I have about most people I've known, and I think that he's better than most people I've known. And I'm sure some people with animals out there can appreciate where I'm coming from with that. But at the end of it, Sarah opted to get his paw print. She's probably going to tattoo it on herself. Whereas, as I brought up earlier, I had talked to Terry about this about a year ago. I want Terry to do a portrait of my dog on my thigh. So I did think about getting it a little bit earlier, but I think it wouldn't have meant as much to me as it will now if I had done it before he was gone. And now it's something that I really need to do. And that was a special dog. I'm not gonna start breaking up on you guys here, but that was the first time in years that I've cried. And I would be completely honest with you. I identified my dad's body, and it was probably easier to do that than it was to sit with my dog when he was put down. And part of that is, when I got that dog, I was at a very hard point in my life, and I think I needed him maybe more than he needed me. And people will find that weird, and people can make whatever kind of stupid comments they want in the comment section. People are disgusting and hateful on social media. I'm not going to be able to prevent that. But anyone that's had a dog that they've had to put down, and especially one that they got at a very low point in their life, they'll know that, dogs can mean more to you than humans. And I'm going to get more into this in the video when I make the video regarding the actual portrait. But, that dog meant a lot to me, and one of my best friends I'll ever have. I do think I'll get another dog at some point. but I don't think it will ever be exactly the same. I think it might be a different type of thing. I'm not ready to, say, oh, I'll never have a dog again, but it'll certainly never be the same as my relationship to that animal. So, with that said, there is so much more to say that I'm going to keep for the next video because I don't want to make this one a half an hour long, and I have one coming up all about this tattoo and this dog. So I will talk more about that in the next one. And I'll show this off one more time. We got some cool tones in here. Obviously, just a chunk. And next time we'll be heading hopefully more through here. I think that the ditch and the inner bicep leading to the ditch could use more love. All right, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.